Alright, today we are watching a program called Forests Serve Man, and this is by the United States Department of Agriculture. Forests Serve Man. I think I'm gonna like this one. This was published all the way back in 1934. This is a really old one, and I had to check to make sure this one actually had sound, because a lot of these 30 ones were just silent films, but this one I'm pretty sure has like sound and narration for us to actually learn something from. I feel like before we even get started, I need to say that I'm excited for this just to witness like the environmentalist movement taking place or taking hold in America. Like that's what I'm hopeful for here.
Some people seem to believe forestry practice is no concern of theirs.
You know, that's a very fair statement, especially during this period, that some people believe that managing the forest is just like not a task that affects them or is to be worried about at all.
To believe forestry practice is no concern of theirs, like the man who asked Bill to help him get his calf out of the well.
Like the man who asked Bill to help him get his calf out of the well. So what we're saying is that like helping something else is like helping the forest. Like even though it might not affect you directly, you should still help it, because if their calf fell down a well, you'd help them and then that would repay you somehow. That's interesting how that's already what we're positing here.
Bill let the old man down into the well. Very soon there was a splash, and then a voice said, "Pull me up." Got him to the top of the well, but he didn't have the calf. Well, he said, "Wasn't the calf down there?" "Oh, yeah," I said, "the calf was down there, but it said it wasn't my calf." Forestry.
That's interesting. That's a funny story. So I guess, yeah, they sent him down to rescue the calf, but because it wasn't his, he didn't bother saving it. So I guess that's a metaphor for the forestry service.
Concerns every one of us, for forests are indispensable to the welfare of man.
See, you know what? Props to him for saying that. Like the fact that we're watching a program from the 70s and they already know that forests are like core to our presence on this planet. Like you just got to appreciate it. You got to recognize that these people were smart, they were intelligent, and they actually knew the right thing all the way back in the 30s. It's wild.
They serve four major purposes. They produce wood products for all sorts of uses.
They produce wood products. That's a fair one, I guess. That's definitely a Department of Agricultural one.
Protect watersheds, regulating streams.
They protect watersheds and regulate streams. That's actually a really good one. I'm impressed with that one because that is like a pretty advanced environmental concept. Having trees around riverbeds and whatever prevents erosion, prevents soil from being deposited downstream. It just prevents all the bad things from happening, having vegetation where it should be, you know, surprise, surprise.
And preventing erosion of soil.
Yeah, erosion of soil. Like once you clear land of its trees, all that soil erodes almost instantly, and you lose all that fertile soil that you were going to plant your crops on. So it really makes no sense to clear all the forests. You know, it's important to communicate to people, especially in the 30s, to not just clear the forest. And I feel like that's what they're trying to communicate here.
They supply food and shelter for wild animals and birds.
Food and shelter for wild animals and birds. You know, I wasn't expecting them to shout out how nature uses trees, but I appreciate that one full use of trees is just for the purpose of nature, you know, for nature to use as homes, for nature to receive food from, and all that sort of stuff. I very much appreciate that is like the third point that they bring up. This is actually already impressing me a whole lot of how aware they are of environmental issues.
They are havens of refuge for man where he may play and rest.
They're havens for man where he may rest and play. See, I like that too. That's like the national parks mantra, right? Is just to have forests for areas of recreation as well.
Billions of feet of timber are cut each year.
Yeah, what's funny is like he listed 3 really good things and then one thing with an economic incentive to destroy the rest. Oh, trees provide food for animals, they provide shelter for birds, they protect our streams, but they also make us money when we cut them down. So are we cutting them down or not, you know?
And used in building houses, in making boxes.
Dang, look at this old footage of these logs traveling down the river, though. This is crazy. Like, this is a forest being destroyed right before our eyes, you know? Like, maybe not a full forest, but like a section, like several thousand acres probably of forest just clear cut on the river right here in front of us.
Barrels, furniture, firewood.
Yeah, like it's hard to see, but there are logs for as far as the eye can see, really.
Freight cars, railroad ties, telephone poles, and innumerable items, big and...
Yeah, it's important to also remember that, like, the country was going crazy with building stuff at this time. Like, this is, what, 34? So this is Great Depression. Had the New Deal been announced yet? I don't know if the New Deal had been announced yet. I think so, but I don't quite know. But either way, I feel like we were building a whole bunch of stuff. Our government invested in building stuff because so many people didn't have jobs that we just created things for them to build so that they would have jobs so that the economy would recover. So not only are we looking at the resource extraction during the past, but we are looking at resource extraction during a very specific period of American history when the economy was so far down that like anyone would do anything for money, including cutting down the entire forest.
little, even to toothpicks and clothespins.
So I guess this is like the most important era for environmentalism to be communicated to people. In the time of greatest economic desperation, you have to tell people, don't just destroy the nature for its resources, you know? Like, that'll only happen once.
It is well to make use of our forests in this fashion if the trees are properly harvested. For with proper protection, other trees will grow and the forest becomes perpetual.
See, it's still just so frustrating to hear them know exactly how to grow forests and to manage a forest while taking lumber from it and still not destroying it. And yet we do still clear-cut forests without any thought of what will come afterward. You know, it's just so crazy hearing these ideals and this level of understanding, and yet knowing that we wouldn't be applying that knowledge for years to come. We still don't apply this knowledge. Like, this knowledge still isn't being applied to forestry around the world. Like, most forestry is just cutting trees down. It's amazing to hear this advanced level of environmentalism this early, but it's also a little disappointing knowing that we did know all this and we continued to act poorly anyway.
The national forests are so handled as to furnish a continual supply year.
And look how big these trees are. That's what I didn't realize either. This is an old growth forest. This isn't like second growth. Every forest in America is second growth. There is no old growth forest in America nowadays. But this is lumberjacks cutting down the old growth forest. Like, that tree we just saw fall, that was like a several 100-year-old tree. And it's just like, oh, this is where all the old growth went. So I gotta pay attention to these shots of the forest just to learn what forests in America used to look like. That's what a lot of people don't understand is our forests, the forest right out my window right there, is not what forests used to look like here on this continent. Forests used to look completely different because it used to be so much older and richer. And this is a preservation of that richness of forest. So this is really special. I'm going to keep my eyes open and just try to pay attention to just how rich the forest looks in comparison to forests I've seen nowadays.
Year after year of wood products. Every green tree that is to be removed is marked by...
Dang, is this guy carrying a flamethrower? This is a 1934 flamethrower. Wow. Like, I guess it makes sense to have a flamethrower by this time. I just, I didn't really picture flamethrowers existing prior to World War II. I don't know why.
By a forester. The brush is properly disposed of, either piled and burned under favorable conditions.
See, isn't that crazy too? They would spend so much effort cutting down these trees and then they would just burn the piles of scraps. Like, I feel like nowadays we have uses for like even sawdust. Like, all those scraps were useful, but they didn't use them. They just burned them. It would have been too much work to transport it back then, but either way, like, it's a shame that all that useful resources ended up just being burned for nothing.
Or scattered so that it may decay and help build up the soil. Young...
You know what? That's a very intelligent thing too, that like they're leaving that material so that it'll build up the soil. Like, I don't know if this area needs its soil built up. Like, I think this area would prefer to just have its trees, but I guess that's a fine consolation prize that at least the rest of the organic matter stays behind.
Trees and seed trees are left and fire is kept out so as to ensure other crops as the years pass.
They just said fire is kept out, but then we just saw that guy with a literal flamethrower lighting up those bundles of sticks. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not.
Thus, trees are removed, but the forest continues.
Thus, trees are removed, but the forest continues. Yeah, again, there's nothing wrong necessarily with thinning out a forest. Like, you can cut trees from a forest and the forest will be fine, and you can actually make a forest even richer sometimes by taking out the forest. But the problem is when you just clear the entire forest, and that is the method that most people apply to forestry. So it's a shame that these people knew there was a way to manage forested lands while still taking economic productivity out of the land and not destroying it at the same time. But clearly people did that anyway.
In rough mountain and hilly regions, the watershed value of the forest may exceed its worth for timber production.
The watershed value of the forest may exceed the value of the timber of the forest. That, again, is very important for people to understand. The services that forests provide us, not only just filtering our air and providing resources, but also holding on to the soil, the whole land pretty much, so that our rivers can stay clean. There's just so much good information in this. They clearly understand environmentalism. I'm definitely having a fun time.
By watershed is meant the land that drains into any certain stream, or a city watershed, simply the land that drains into the streams and reservoirs that furnish the water supply for that city. Some soils erode more easily than others, but all earth washes to a lesser or greater degree from hills and mountain slopes, and the surface runoff of water.
Are we supposed to be watching something? I cannot see a thing on screen. I have all these lights so that you guys can see my face, but that means I can't really see the screen. I'm pretty sure it's just black right now.
Water is greatly accelerated when timber is removed and the land is burned over. These scenes are striking examples of erosion.
Oh man, so what we're supposed to be seeing right now are scenes of striking erosion. We can't quite see it, but I feel like I understand what they're getting at. I appreciate that they're mentioning it at the very least.
Over the country as a whole, the greatest damage from erosion is caused by improper farming and overgrazing, but removal of timber and burning the land and cultivating steep hills and mountain slopes has resulted in tremendous loss of soil.
See, that's interesting that they actually understand like soil erosion, and that's kind of like the important thing to them. Or I guess this is the US Department of Agriculture, right? So I guess it makes sense for them to be obsessed with soil. I actually like that. I actually like that the US Department of Agriculture had to care about our forests in order to ensure that our soil was good and maintained. I like that you have to rely on the forest for good agricultural outcomes. You know, like making a relationship with nature is what we need to do in order to ensure nature continues to persist. So I appreciate that mindset as well.
The washing away of soil is not only ruining field and forest, but that same soil is filling the streams and reservoirs, causing untold damage and great loss of property.
That's interesting. The soil is filling into reservoirs and causing untold damage. See, like, I didn't really expect that to happen. I can't imagine how the soil would cause damage, but maybe it's just building things. Maybe it's just like blocking up dams or something. That's what I can imagine.
Some reservoirs built at considerable expense have filled with silt.
Oh, some reservoirs built with considerable expense. So we made dams to fill up reservoirs, but then all the erosion from the upstream area filled that reservoir with sediment so that we can no longer use the dam to receive power from. That's interesting. That's interesting that like we are recognizing those issues and how everything comes back onto itself eventually.
In a few years, these denuded slopes and some of the...
Denuded slopes. That is like the best word. That is like denuded slopes. That is like the best phrase to describe what these areas used to look like. Denuded, completely stripped of trees. Like everywhere in this country. Like everywhere there were trees, imagine there not being trees. Like that's what it used to be like here.
Wasted farmland where forests were destroyed or never previously existed should be permitted to come back into timber.
So what he's saying is that these denuded slopes should be allowed to return to a forested state, which is what we've seen now. Every single forest outside now is a denuded slope that has been allowed to regrow forest. None of it is old growth is what I'm saying. Like, we clear cut every single hill in this country and then we let it regrow. And that's what he's saying we should do here. So that's fascinating. I wish we could see what their America looked like, because I bet it would shock all of you just how bare the landscape probably looked back then. It's just important to understand any forest that you go out into nowadays in America is a new forest. It is still regrowing from the time that we cleared these forests back in the 30s. Like, this isn't that long ago, and you have to understand that. You have to understand that we did clear pretty much everything to understand why people are making programs like this. Like, the only reason people thought, oh, we need to educate people on how forests serve us is because people are destroying them without a thought about it. So what we are watching now is like the reaction to how people denuded this land during this time. And I just feel like Americans nowadays have no concept of this. We have no memory that this country was completely cleared of trees not that long ago, because we live in a time that these people helped to influence to allow these trees to regrow. He just said it. We are going to let them regrow. We today enjoy the forests that they allowed to start growing. That's what's so amazing. Like, the forests that I play in all the time didn't exist when this guy was recording this, and they only exist because this guy recorded this. Maybe not specifically this guy, but because there was the environmentalist movement in America. That's why we have forested mountaintops nowadays. It's so important to understand and to be grateful for the forest we have in this country, because there was very much a time where there was no forest at all. And I'm glad that this guy is telling us all that.
East of the Great Plains, according to the 1930 census, more than 450 million acres of land are neither farmed nor are they in improved pastures.
450 million acres are neither farmed or forested anymore. Like, we cleared so much land, and the people who cleared it weren't the best farmers. They didn't use it the best. It's not like that cleared forest land was then converted into 100% productive agricultural land. It's like that cleared forest just ended up being an empty lot with nothing happening in it. And it's like, that's the true shame. People just cleared forest for the wood, and they didn't even have rights to the land, so they would just let it go and then nothing would grow back. It's just, it's so frustrating.
And unless these acres raise trees, they are for the most part idle.
That's just crazy. That's just crazy that this country had so much land that wasn't being used for anything, and it used to be forest.
State and national nurseries are producing millions of trees that are being planted on these wastelands.
That's good. That's good, at least, that there was an actual effort to reforest. I never quite understood this era or how they got forests to regrow, but it's nice to know that there was some sort of effort to get these forests to regenerate. Though, again, I can't see anything on screen. I really feel bad for you guys, because there is nothing to watch while I am talking.
This work must be greatly speeded up if serious consequences are to be avoided. Fire is still the great menace to forests and woodlands, but grazing of hardwood areas is also doing serious damage. Many fires are set purposely under some mistaken idea that they are beneficial.
That's really funny, because I feel like we've gone full circle and then another half circle after that. So some people were starting fires because they believed that they were beneficial to the forest. But this guy is saying clearly, obviously, that's not true. The fire kills the forest. So now we're in the time where forest fires are bad and they remove economically productive forest land. But then, since this was made, we've come back around and we've actually recognized that fire is part of the ecosystem for a lot of these forests. A lot of these trees have seeds that only open once they interact with fire. So now we let forest fires burn, but we try to contain them. So it's funny to have seen like the full story of our perception of forest fires. All the way from, hey, I'm going to start a forest fire to clear this land for my farm, to, hey, maybe this is a good thing for the forest, to, hey, this is actually probably a bad bad thing for the forest back to, hey, this is actually probably a good thing for the forest. It's like we've had so many different thoughts on whether or not forest fires are good or bad that it's funny to hear their thoughts from the 30s.
And destroying insects, weeds, and disease germs. But the damage done is far in excess of any possible good that could result. Carelessness is the cause of many fires.
Dang, but here we are watching a forest fire rage in an old forest. Again, like knowing that these are all old growth, oh my god, I can't believe it's on fire now. Like if you understood how rare old growth forest is in America nowadays, you would understand why I'm struggling to watch this fire burn.
Fires cast aside smoking material such as lighted matches and cigarette stubs thrown from automobiles or discarded while hunting, fishing, and tramping through the woods and fields causes from 40 to 50% of all forest fires.
That's interesting that 40 to 50% of forest fires were caused by humans back then, because I feel like nowadays it's a lot more. Well, I guess maybe not. I don't know, because like climate change makes forest fires a lot easier to get started and a lot harder to stop. So I guess that's still another human-caused reason.
32 more than 41 million acres of forest and woodland were burned. The actual loss of timber was not so great, but the damage to big trees, killing of little trees, and the destruction of ground cover and fertilizer value, and the increase of surface runoff of water and soil erosion, killing of wildlife was tremendous.
That was a pretty effective list of all the negative effects that forest fires or just destroying forested land has on a society, right? Like that is pretty much every negative thing that you could have listed right there. So I appreciate that.
In 1933,
Again, I'm very impressed with their environmental awareness right now. Like they know all the right answers already. It's honestly a little shocking to hear them so knowledgeable in this and still choose to go another direction in this country. I don't know. It's such a shame because this is made by the United States Department of Agriculture. Like we knew how to preserve our forests, you know, like this isn't just this guy's knowledge. This is the knowledge of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Like we know how to treat our forests well. And it's just like we didn't quite do that even still.
Most unusual fire in Oregon destroyed 11 billion feet of some of the best timber in the state.
An unusual fire in Oregon destroyed 11 billion feet of some of the best timber in the state. Wait, hang on. So how many
fires are successfully fought in national, state, county, and town forests and on some privately owned land? But many millions of acres are under no protection.
Many millions of acres are under no protection. So is this the beginning of the U.S. Forest Service? That would be like the ideal way to end this program. Is like, yes, that's why we're starting the USFS or whatever.
Protection. It is on these unprotected areas where the greatest losses occur.
It is these unprotected areas where the greatest losses occur. That's another very important thing to understand, is that when nobody has control over it, you can do anything you want. You can clear as much of the forest when nobody is going to tell you not to, you know? So very important to understand that land owned by no one is land owned by everyone.
Roads, trails, fire breaks, and telephone lines are being built, and lookout towers are erected to control the fire situation. The United States
lookout towers. Well, that's so funny because like if you go hiking around the US, you will find fire towers everywhere. It's funny to think that the fire towers I've seen at the top of mountains everywhere were being built right during this time period. During the 30s, the Civilian Conservation Corps or whatever was building fire towers all over the country. So like that's really when it took place right here.
Forest Service and other national and state agencies are fighting fires that do occur, and the public is cooperating, but still the damage is tremendous. Trees mean more to man than simply to furnish him with wood.
Trees mean more to man than to simply furnish him with wood. I mean, yes and no.
Lumber, furniture, and so forth are to protect the watersheds. They take water from the soil. A large amount of this water evaporates from the leaves into the air. comes down again.
Wow, honestly, I was not expecting a lesson in like evapotranspiration as well, but like here we are. We're really getting like a tour to the environmental sciences right now.
As rain or fog.
Like the fact that they're telling us that trees create their own rain by taking up water, evaporating it through their leaves or transpiring it through their leaves, and then having that rain come back down, back onto the forest again. Like that is such an advanced understanding of forest ecology. It's so impressive. It really is.
Trees furnish shade along the highways and about the home.
Furnace shade along the highways. That's a very funny like top function of trees,
They provide shelter from wind and storm.
It's just like we can't cut down all the trees. They provide shade on the highways. Like that's not the important aspect of trees, if you ask me. It's not an important aspect, but like it's not the number one argument I'd make.
A farm in South Dakota with an adequate shelter belt about the farmstead is worth $1,000 more than a farm without such a protection.
An adequate shelter belt about his property. So what they're talking about is pretty much lining your open fields with just like a line of trees in order to protect it from wind and, allow animals to get through and everything. And it's interesting that he's saying that actually improves productivity. That's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I would never tell a farmer that they will increase their crop yields by planting trees along the outskirts of their property, but they might. They actually might.
Is worth $1,000 more than a farm without
$1,000 more. See, yeah, I would never attribute a dollar value to the amount that planting trees on your property will increase your crop yields. But you know what? I'm not the United States Department of Agriculture, so that's the difference, I guess.
Without such a protection, farm stock needs less food and the house is more comfortable with less fuel. The protection from wind in winter and the glare of the sun in summer make living on such a farm genuine pleasure.
It's pretty funny to hear this guy just like list every reason somebody would want a tree near them. He's just saying like trees provide shade when it's hot out and they also like keep warm air next to you when it's cold. It's just like, it's every single reason you would have for wanting to keep trees. He is making the argument that we should have trees in our like built spaces.
It is a real home. In the plains country, a shelter belt prevents the rapid drying out of the soil in its lee, and a heavier crop is produced.
See, that's a pretty good argument, that a shelter belt will prevent the drying out of the soil by shading the soil, but also by holding the soil in the ground and everything as well. That's interesting. They are making some pretty good arguments. I don't know if you're actually winning people over with these arguments.
Birds are the friends of man. They eat noxious weed seeds and destroy.
They eat noxious weed seeds. It's funny to hear him describe birds as like the friend of man, because I made a whole video on Atlas Pro about how during this time specifically, we hunted a whole bunch of birds to extinction, like the passenger pigeon, like the most populous bird literally on the planet, maybe the most populous large animal on the planet, the passenger pigeon. Billions, maybe trillions of birds in that flock. And we hunted every last one of them to extinction like crazy.
Destroy injurious insects by the millions of tons each year.
Yeah, and now we have to deal with those insects because we killed all the birds that eat them. Well, I guess the passenger pigeons ate acorns, but whatever. We also killed other birds as well.
The forests, groves, and the shrubbery protect them. Most wild animals live in the...
What are we watching? Are these deer? I can barely see what's going on screen. I really do feel bad for making you guys watch this, but at the same time, it's like the oldest program we've ever watched on this channel so far. So in the spirit of Archive Dive, like there is still knowledge and information that's been preserved in this that is valuable to us. Like even this, like that is so difficult to watch and to enjoy, is still chock full of fantastic information regarding forestry.
In the forest or near it and are sheltered by it.
Look at this. Is this a chipmunk or a squirrel? It's like a big squirrel, but it's not a gray squirrel. It might be like a red squirrel or something. We don't have a lot of red squirrels near me. It's mostly gray squirrels, so that's what I'm used to.
Game animals and birds furnish sport and recreation for more than 10 million people.
That kind of looked like a chipmunk, though, but it's a really big chipmunk if that's the case. Now, this has to be a chipmunk. Based on the pattern, yeah, that's a chipmunk.
In this country, each year...
Is that a moose? See, I've never seen a moose either in my entire life. I've never even seen a moose at a zoo. I don't think they have mooses at zoos. Mooses? Whatever.
Estimated at 4...
Meese or moose?
124 million...
Hang on, I gotta go back. I stopped paying attention to what he was saying again.
People in this... Game animals and birds furnish sport and recreation for more than 10 million people in this country.
Again, it's funny to hear the way that he argues that forests are valuable, right? Like, he says that forests are home to all these like woodland critters like the chipmunks, but that's not the value. The value is that you can hunt those creatures and eat them. And if you cut down the forest, then you can't hunt those creatures anymore. You know, like, it still makes sense, like it does, but you have to sell environmentalism to the people who actually engage with the environment, who are hunters. Like, it's hard to tell a hunter, don't hunt, but then you tell them, well, don't kill these trees and you will be able to hunt more. Maybe the hunter will actually decide to protect all the trees so that they can hunt all the land. You know, like, it's interesting the groups of people that you need to sell environmentalism to and the way that you package information to sell it to certain groups of people. To get hunters on board with environmental conservation, you have to make it clear to them that conserving the environment will actually give them more things to hunt, you know, which is, again, ironic that we're advertising hunting as this thing that's going to save forestry or whatever. But it's just this crazy balance between taking from nature and giving back to nature that we need to convince everyone of. And it's interesting to hear the arguments that they make during this time, because the people who lived during this time had different mindsets than the people who live now. You know, like, the people who lived during this time viewed nature as something to be conquered or something that would kill them. You know, so you did sort of just have to convince people that nature wasn't this evil force that was out to get you, but rather this thing that was providing you with resources. You know, like, that is the big jump that they're trying to make through making this program, is that nature isn't trying to kill you. It's actually the thing that's sustaining you. That is like the crux of the environmentalist movement right there.
Each year, and have a value estimated at $424,650,000.
I love receiving the very specific dollar value too, like even to the cents almost. Like, every single last digit was accounted for in that statement. And it's just like, you can just say a general term. Like, we're talking about all the forest in the US. You don't have to give me like the exact dollar value. You're allowed to estimate.
Landowners in some localities lease the hunting and trapping...
Hang on, that was a bear, but again, we just barely saw it.
...privileges on their lands for enough to pay the taxes. Here, again, fire takes its toll by burning wild animals, big and little, by destroying food and shelter, by burning birds' nests, and sometimes even the birds themselves. Man himself is sometimes the victim of a forest fire. The great Pestigo fire in Wisconsin in 1871 burned 1,500 people to death. In 1918 at Moose Lake, Minnesota, 432 people were killed.
432 people were killed in a forest fire? Jeez.
Almost every year, forest fires destroy human lives in greater or lesser numbers.
See, this is interesting. Again, even though we are entering the environmentalist movement, again, our understanding of forest fires wasn't perfect back then. We thought they were entirely destructive, both to humans and to nature. So we sought to control forest fires, but we have since learned that they are actually part of the process of nature, which makes so much sense when you think about it. But it's funny to hear them understanding so many aspects of the environment so well, but to misunderstand forest fires.
Streams regulated and shaded by forest growth give joy to millions of fishermen each year. People swarm to the forest for outings of all sorts, and each year the national forests entertain
That was a really easy fish catch right there.
More than 32 million visitors.
Wow, look at all these people camping. See, like, this is what camping in the 1930s looked like. Look at these little tents, like they're real tents, but oh man, like I'm so curious about like what these look like up close too. Oh man.
32 million visitors. And in national and state forests and parks, more than 40 million people find recreation.
That's crazy how many people were using forests as recreation back in the 30s. Because weren't they like just getting started as parks? I feel like that's a lot of people. 40 million back in 1930. That would have been like half of the country, a third of the country maybe, go out into the forest for recreation. That's wow.
In national forests, public camping grounds are prepared and sanitary conditions are maintained. Our strenuous everyday life drives us to the forest. If we would
Our strenuous everyday life drives us to the forest. I couldn't agree more.
live long and joyously. Douglas Mallock, the lumber poet, has said, get up in the timber. The trail and the trees will make you a man in a day. The smell of the soil and the breath of the breeze will blow all your troubles away. There's pine for you, wine for you, hope for you there. The sun and the moon and the star. If the ways of the city are not on the square, get up in the woods where they are.
Wow, so that was a nice little reading of a poem. I liked that. I liked that a lot, actually. But I think that's it. I think we're just about to watch some more scenes of the forest with some music. But let's watch. Let's enjoy the last few minutes. Very, very blurry shot of a mountain. This was totally not even in focus when they took it. Okay, yeah, that is the total end. So that was interesting. That was very cool to see the view of the environmentalist movement from the 1930s. Again, this is a very early program. Even for this channel, I have seldom watched programs from the 30s because most of them are silent films, and I don't want to force you guys to watch that stuff with me. But this was good. This had narration. This had, explanation. This was good. This is exactly what I wanted out of this. And it's so fascinating, again, to see the origins of the environmentalist movement here in America, to see the arguments they made, to see the understanding that they had, to see where they were in the process of understanding nature and understanding forest fires and all that sort of stuff. It's just like, again, this is a total time capsule of how we thought about the world back then and how we were trying to change our way of thinking, right? That's really what this is. This program is trying to get people to change their way of thinking about forest. We're trying to get people to value forest rather than hating forest. So I really do think this was a good program for us to watch, but even more than that, this was a good program for the United States Department of Agriculture to have produced for the purpose of affecting the Americans' thoughts. Even if this is American propaganda, I approve of the message. I am drinking this propaganda wholesale for sure, absolutely. I don't mind spreading this political ideology at all. I actually am a propagandist in this sense. I make videos on the internet for Atlas Pro aspiring towards this ideology, this environmentalist ideology. So this is my type of propaganda, I guess. This is the propaganda that I am the most susceptible to, and this is the type of propaganda that I prefer to consume and to produce, which is so crazy to think about that. But yeah, I guess I do produce environmentalist propaganda, I guess. Which I think is what makes this so interesting. This is one of the very first pieces of environmentalist propaganda. This is the start of us telling each other to care about the environment. This is all the arguments they're making are still the arguments we make today. Oh, the environment affects us. Oh, we receive economic benefit from the environment. Everything they say is still the arguments we make today. So it really is amazing to get to see the beginning of the environmentalist movement here. I really do appreciate that. A bit boring of a watch, I'll be honest. A bit lacking in the visual department, but overall, I liked the ideas in this. I liked the mindset. I liked the purpose of it all. I think this was very good. I enjoyed this thoroughly, and I hope you all did too. And if you did and you would like to help support what I do here, you can follow the link in the description that'll take you over to the Internet Archive. The Internet Archive is where I get all these old programs from. So if you want to support me, donate to them. And with that, I think we're ready to cut to black.